Welcome everyone to the 2020 Quorum Summit. We appreciate all of you tuning into today's session on surprising and delighting your grassroots advocates. For those who I haven't had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Ari Kanner. I am the grassroots team lead here at Quorum, and I'll be moderating today's session. I'm joined by my friend and client, the Director of Emerging Technologies for Toyota's Government Affairs team, Rebecca Steele.
Hi, Ari.
Hey, Rebecca. Today, we will be learning how Toyota North America uses Quorum to engage their advocates through gamification and more. So before we get started, I'd just like to mention one more time that we do have closed captioning available in the link in the chat. So you can go ahead and just check out the chat, click the link to access that. Wonderful. So now that we got some of the logistics out of the way here, we will be discussing surprising and delighting grassroots advocates. So to kick things off here, in public affairs, we've noticed that people don't really use the same creative thinking that they use in fields like marketing or advertising. So how do we apply this same type of thinking to grassroots advocacy? In other words, Becca, how do you make grassroots advocates feel engaged and a part of something bigger?
Yeah, well, thanks, Ari, and thanks for having me today. And it's a really good question. We all know that how you make people feel is much more memorable than what you said to them or what you're asking for them to do. And working for an automotive company, obviously, we really understand the power of how you make someone feel can influence and close that sale, right? And when I think about advocacy, I really think about what value are we bringing to our advocates and how are we communicating that value to them and making them feel like they're part of something that's important, whether it's to the company or to themselves personally. So that's how we really think about making folks feel engaged in our program, is we make them feel valued and how we show value to them. Along those lines at Toyota, back when I first came on to Toyota 3 years ago. I've been with the company 3 years now, and I've been in an interesting role where I'm a lobbyist, but I oversee our digital advocacy and manage that. So I really can see how what we're doing in grassroots then ultimately plays into lobbying and vice versa, right? Figuring out as a lobbyist, how can I leverage our grassroots program? When I came to Toyota 3 years ago, we came up with as a team these 5 values that we wanted Toyota and our program, what we believed it stands for and what we wanted to have it continue to stand for as we entered this kind of digital grassroots era. So I'll just run through the 5 really quickly, just because they might give you some ideas of how we envision providing value to our advocates by adhering to these values. So we always want to stay positive in our messaging. We tell stories. It's about people and the people that our policy decisions and our policy choices impact. We create meaningful content. We're not just putting content out there asking people to do things so that we check a box. It has meaning for them and for us. We do organic first at Toyota in our grassroots program. We're not open to all the public. We really focus on having quality engagement with our employees who've opted in. So growing organically first. And then we use data to inform our decisions. And so really see how people are reacting to what we're putting out there and are they finding value in it. So that's kind of how we think about creating value for advocates. I think if you create value for your advocates, they're going to want to participate in your program.
Right. Well, I really want to kind of dig into what you're saying there about really making your content meaningful and telling stories through your advocacy, because I think that's kind of unique for a corporate advocacy program. So I know there's like a really interesting story about how you all, how the Toyota Grassroots program got started. But so I want to just kind of back up a little bit here and start at the beginning. You and your team at Toyota took a really intentional approach to building your advocacy program, defining these values, and all of this, in my opinion, really built the foundation for your success today. So could you tell everyone a little bit about how you went about building that buy-in, especially at the leadership level for a grassroots program, and then how you've continued to make yourselves accessible to both your advocates and other departments within the company?
So executive buy-in and company-wide buy-in is really critical for government affairs, especially when you're in DC. You're not in the corporate office. If you're not engaging with executives and folks across the company, it's very easy for people to think, well, like, what is government affairs doing? I don't hear from them. There's like a lot going on in government, but like,
Right.
what are we doing? What are they doing? So just generally in government affairs, I think having really good communication with your stakeholders, your clients, the rest of the company is really, really important. And so we take that and kind of operationalize that in a lot of different ways in our government affairs team.
Mm.
So whether it's an actual executive engagement program we have, where we have specific executives in areas that we're working in DC, that we're going to engage on those, or getting buy-in for these different types of programs that we have, right? We're communicating with almost 10,000 employees and asking them to take time out of their day and their work day to participate in something for us, whether it's a quick call to action or it's listening to a webinar. So you want to have buy-in from their bosses and from themselves and the rest of the company that that's a valuable use of their time. So we really communicate the value of kind of the theory of change, like why doing this impacts policy. And it's very helpful. I was a Hill staffer. We have other Hill staffers on our team, state government staffers, where you can talk about how hearing from advocates and hearing their stories and from employees does really make a difference. So that's a really helpful to kind of push along your theory of change of why you need it. And when we did it, when we built up our grassroots programs, we really started small and then grew them, right? We're very deliberate. It wasn't just, let's invite everyone into the program and see how it goes. We started out with the Washington, DC office, and we'd had a supplier and a dealer program where we were engaging suppliers and dealers. That was going well. We wanted to do it with Toyota employees. So we started with the DC office. Then we kind of identified some champions at different plants and facilities across the country where we could then use their employees. So we really got that buy-in by starting small and then building up from there and getting feedback from employees. You know, we have a policy drivers, that's the name of our grassroots advocacy program. There's an email that they can email and we read all those emails. We respond to comments. People will say, hey, we like that you did this video. Maybe we think that we'd be interested in this next time, or my login isn't working. Will you help me? Like all of that gets answered. And like you're in sales and customer service. And so treating your advocates with respect is answering their questions and really rolling out. They deserve to have a thoughtful program that works and is impactful. And so communicating that with them has really helped us in maintaining support for the program.
Definitely. Yeah. There's a lot of really great things in there. So it's hard to focus on a few, but I think what you're saying about the really intentional and thoughtful approach to building that buy-in, not only with the advocates, but also with leadership and with other departments within the company, is really important. And that you did it in kind of a piecemeal fashion where you did a little pilot program, then showed the results so that you're not just dropping everything on a new team's plate and saying, hey, this is what we're doing now. It's also really valuable that you had that kind of lobbying experience and being able to really communicate the value of grassroots advocacy, because I see that being oftentimes the biggest obstacle to building that internal buy-in is just truly being able to clearly communicate the value and what it'll bring to your government affairs team operation overall. So that's really great to hear. And especially the part about just having that singular point of contact for anyone, whether it's advocates themselves or other departments within the company to reach out to provide feedback in terms of things that you could do that would be especially beneficial to them, or some content that they really liked, or something else that they might want to see done a little differently. It's just really important to have that available and for people to know that they can provide feedback so that they feel like it's more of something that they're a part of and not something that's, pushed upon them. Yeah,
it's a community as opposed to like, oh, we just need something from you and we email you when we need something, but when you need something from us, we don't. Like that's not a community you want to be part of, right? Like treat people how you want to be treated. And I think that really extends to any type of work you do, and especially in advocacy. Like I get emails all the time, not in my job, but in personal capacity, asking, me to sign this petition or to do that or whatnot on all these email lists. And the ones that stick with you are the ones that clearly explain the value and that you feel like you're part of a community and you have like the shared goal you're working towards.
Right, right. And part of being able to explain that value is getting comfortable explaining things normally and casually, and not feeling the need to um, frame all of your content in a very rigid kind of corporate structure, which we often see with the corporate programs. You've allowed yourself to get a little bit more comfortable so that you can speak in ways that will actually resonate with people, and really communicate the value of what you're doing.
Yeah, surprising and delighting. We want it to be fun.
Exactly, exactly. So I love hearing about Toyota's intentional approach to seeking feedback and making themselves accessible when it comes to running your advocacy program. So it's really great that you're doing that with both your advocates and the internal departments. But once you're aware of all these different goals and priorities and preferences, how do you cater to all these different groups, especially as it pertains to different advocate personas? Because you're working with, like you said, thousands of different Toyota employees. I'm sure they come from different departments and different regions across the country.
Yeah, that's a great question, Ari. And I think really that there's no one size fits all approach, but you also have to do what's reasonable, right? Like it's maybe not reasonable to write up separate emails to go to the salespeople and then ones to go to the R&D people, depending on the issue, right? So how we bucketed it based on like bandwidth and where we felt that we could get the most like juice for the squeeze, right? Is looking at our big pillars of stakeholders. So we have our dealers, Toyota dealers, they're their own companies, right? We have a business relationship with them.
Right.
Then we have our suppliers, so the people who, build everything from big head units that go into our car to like the glues and the tubes and the pastes and everything that go in. And then we have our employees, right? And so communicating why something's good for Toyota, it's going to, if it's good for Toyota, it's generally good for those three different groups, but it might be good for different reasons, right? And when you're talking to a supplier, there may be different issues that you want to highlight about how it impacts their supply chain versus what you want to talk about to an employee. Like in an example of tariffs, we had a big advocacy campaign to raise awareness of if there was a proposed tariff on automobiles, how that would hurt the US auto industry. And communicating that across the different pillars and those different advocacy groups was really important. And we wanted to think about how we made sure that that fit in with everyone's interests, right? And some issues you also have to recognize, like maybe the dealers, data privacy, that's something that's they have to handle on their own as like a separate business entity, right? So we're going to work that differently through our advocacy program than just like a blanket email to everyone. So this is where my like plug for Quorum. It's really helpful to have all of those in like one system. We have 3 different action centers so that we can have different issues for these different stakeholder groups, but you manage them in one place. You can see where they're like cross-pollinating. When you go into a lawmaker's office, you can say, oh, I have 5 dealers in their district and this many employees, and we also have a supplier there. Maybe we don't have a factory, but we have an R&D facility. So Quorum like helps tie it all together when you have these different personas. But I really think folks should think about what are the like key differentiators in your buckets. When is it appropriate to cater and take those into account? And when is it also appropriate to say we're all reaching for the same goal and I can communicate that goal in a similar way? So it's I'm not running like an extraordinarily micro-targeted program here like you would if you were doing, like a big presidential campaign or something.
Right.
But it works for us. And we get good feedback that people like understand clearly why this issue matters to them in their role with our company.
Definitely. Yeah. So what I'm getting from you is like, when you're trying to decide whether to make multiple appeals that will resonate with multiple personas, or using like a singular content stream that might work for everyone, it's really thinking about what are the big main differentiators and what are the kind of smaller sort of preferences that might not be important enough to really have a whole new content stream over. And I would definitely second your point about having different, like multiple action centers within Quorum. It's a really easy way for you to have different content streams and have it naturally separated for you, but it's all in the same place. So it's super easy to compare across different programs, to borrow language from different places. And it just makes it that much easier to have these multiple communication streams, but still hosted in a singular place.
Yeah. And we had separate actions on, we had like the action centers in other companies and different advocacy, and really pulling it all under one roof. Like I've experienced both, and the one roof approach just works really well for our needs and like our small team. Like you said, to be able to just pull things over, we know how to work one system, like our lobbyists know how to work one system.
Right.
And it just is much more efficient, which we really like in manufacturing.
Definitely. So to kind of recap here, it's important to make yourselves accessible so that you can learn what other departments within your organization are looking to get out of the program and what your advocates care about. And then you cater to different advocate personas so that your message is relevant to multiple groups. But then that leads me to my next question, which is, how do you get the advocates to care? How do you make your content meaningful and relevant to their work?
Yeah, that's a really good question, because back to my whole thesis of advocacy is it has to be meaningful for people, right? Whether it's because they understand that it's important for the company they work for, it's important for them personally, or they're getting something fun out of it. And so to the second point, I mean, I think we can all, think about, how do we communicate that this is valuable to our company, right? Our company is successful if X is done or if X is not done. If they're successful, you're successful, right? And for some folks that really resonates and that works really well. For other people, maybe you're newer to the company. I think there's a generational divide here, right? You're going to have a whole workforce that doesn't have pensions, right? That benefits are portable, that feels less tied to a company. Maybe what motivates them is not the company being around for 40 more years, but something else that's meaningful. Maybe it's educational opportunity to learn about politics because you're part of the program. Right. Or maybe it's participating in gamification. So to kind of highlight that like fun and different angle, we started gamifying participation. So people get points for engaging in different calls to action or watching videos or participating in town halls. And we instituted, it's really fun, I can give a slide on it, a ninja warrior program that people can move up through the different levels as they get more points. And then you get some fun prizes that correspond with it. So we had success with it. People like the program. We're doing prize distribution now. And we had people emailing us being like, when are the prizes coming? We're really excited. So just like a different fun incentive for people. And it's also memorable, right? Like it makes the program stick out. Like when you're going through your corporate email and you're like, oh, like a fun ninja doing a little move. Like that's fun. That sticks out. I'm surprised. Right. I'm delighted. So that's kind of how we approach gamification. And it gives people like a little bit of extra incentive. Some folks were going to do it anyways, which is fantastic. And we also want to reward them and make it fun when they do it. And then, another part of that is doing things like we did a virtual Washington week, so we couldn't do a fly-in this year. And invites were exclusively for Toyota policy drivers. So we had discussions with everyone from like Jonathan Swan to members of Congress that represented different facilities. So kind of something for everyone. And even if you're like, I don't really like care that much about like politics, but like Jonathan Swan's interesting and fun, like I'll tune in and listen to him. It just provides something that I think is a little unconventional. We had Katty Kay come and just talk about confidence. She has a book called The Confidence Code and about building confidence and men and women could have, really benefit from it. She came and talked. So that was just something of value to, we had it as a live conversation for female executives and then recorded it and shared with all policy drivers. So again, thinking of different ways to provide value to your advocates, not just like, well, we stopped a policy and now our company is in a good spot. Like that's important, but there's other valuable things you can provide too.
I'm really glad you said that about the Washington week, because I think that's a really important distinction that people think gamification, okay, that needs to be monetary prizes. And it can be, it totally can be. It can be little t-shirts, stickers, it can be small things, it can be big things like, a big Amazon gift card or a trip or a car even. But I think something that can be
no cars.
No cars. I think it's something that can be a lot more meaningful, especially for advocates who have been around the program for a while and aren't going to be drawn in by those little catchy prizes and things like that, but actually want something that's going to be a little bit more meaningful and a little bit more thought provoking, is giving them non-monetary access to things like the speaker series that you were talking about here, or even just honoring them as one of your top advocates at your next conference. It's this kind of stuff that can appeal to people's sense of self-worth that can be so much more impactful and also a lot cheaper than some of the monetary prizes.
Yeah, and just like it's more fun and interesting, and we want to provide value in a variety of different ways. So if we have folks now, we've done a whole video series called Take Five, and it's just 5 minutes. We did 3 episodes talking about like what is the electoral college, but more importantly, like what does this mean in 2020 and what are the battleground states, right? What happens if there's a tie in the electoral college? What's at stake in this election? Everything from like, sorry, my dog is whining, that's not me. What's at stake in this election, whether it's like the Supreme Court, redistricting, right? So we're trying to like have fun and in an interesting way, but also like give people information. Like we think about government all the time, but like
Right.
it's not the job of everyone else.
Right. And I do want to stay on the topic of gamification here, but I will say a quick plug for GOTV and just engagement around the election in general. That is oftentimes, especially for you associations and corporations out there, oftentimes this is the first time some people will be involved or interested in politics, is through a presidential election, through information or speaker series or some kind of panel that their work puts on. And that's a really great way to then just kick things off, because once these people are more interested, more engaged with politics and government affairs, they're more likely to join your advocacy program, to start participating and be an addition and a value add to your program. So definitely recommend organizations engaging around the election. But back to the topic here.
We're doing a GOTV thing. I'm not running that, but if folks have questions, I mean, we're doing like providing, my dog just yawned. I'm not boring, I promise. We're providing information around like where to vote, how to vote, Toyota gives time off to vote. So I think all of the above, right? Like whatever you can provide to your advocates is fantastic and is a value add for them.
Definitely. So I do want to back up and talk about gamification for a second here. For those who've joined us here today who are not aware of gamification, it is a really great way to incentivize advocates to take action and inspire some friendly competition. So adding gamification to the Action Center is completely free. It's already comes along with your Grassroots product, and it allows admins and quorum to assign point values to different campaigns, create customizable reward levels, and identify champions for your cause through tracking the point progression of your advocates. So it's a really effective way to make advocacy more exciting and meaningful. But I'll let Rebecca talk about how you should do it in a fun way and not just do it just to check a box and just doing it simply to say that you've done it.
Yeah, so we really wanted it to be memorable. So again, back to the concept of kind of having this ninja level program. And next year, we're going to have a whole different concept that people can go through these various levels and have different characters. So again, something fun, a little bit outside the box. Maybe you wouldn't think, we weren't just like, oh, and now you have 10 stars. It's like, now you're like a warrior ninja and you get this. So originally we were like, and to answer, I see some of the questions coming out in the chat box about like prizes and how do you do this without spending a lot of money, which is really important. And we're the same way. Like look at this, the environment right now, everyone needs to look at budgets and be lean. Like we weren't trying to be like everyone who participates gets a $25 gift card, right? So we really thought about like, what is something non-monetary that we could give people? And so when you move to a next level in gamification, you're like new ninja pops up on the screen and it does a new move. So like that was just something that you designed the ninjas, and then once people go to the next level, they see that. So something fun like that that's not monetary, but gives them like a little bit of reward. And then there's like a progress bar. And so they can see, what level they're at. And you get like a congrats, you're a master ninja when you make it all the way up there. So that's like a non-monetary way to do it. Some of our prizes include stickers. So like cheap to mail. Before COVID, we were going to just go to HQ and like email everyone and say, come down. And if you're like this level ninja, like we'll give you your prizes there. We'll give you a sticker there, so that we didn't have to like mail them all out. Fulfillment's looking a little different now. But I think you can think of fun ways. Like people just want that like little sense of recognition. I was like, what would I want? Like I like to put stickers on my laptop. We did do, t-shirts for some of our higher level. And then we did like these little foam ninjas for one of the levels. But if you don't have a huge budget, and we don't have a huge budget for this, but if you're trying to go zero cost, I really encourage like what's kind of a digital incentive that you can give people, whether it's like the little avatar having a new move or a low cost incentive, like a sticker, something like that.
Right. Definitely.
Or maybe it's like enter a raffle and like one person, gets this in-person experience in Washington, D.C. when we're doing that again. So people just want to feel like they're part of something, that there's something there. It doesn't necessarily have to be like Starbucks just gives you like little stars and then you get free drinks. Like you spend $100, you get like $1 back, right? Like that's not expensive for Starbucks, but you feel really excited when your little stars come in your app. At least I do. So just thinking about like kind of what makes you be like, oh, when you get something.
Exactly. Now, I do want to make sure that I can show folks the slides here really quickly so that you can see your amazing program. But we'll try to save some time for a few questions at the end as well. So I'm going to share my screen here. And I wanted to just walk folks through a few screenshots that I have from the Toyota Action Center that really align with some of the things that we've been talking about here, to show that Rebecca's not just, saying things to say things here, that they really do live what they're talking about. So one is just really making your program fun, exciting, interesting, and meaningful to individual advocates. This video here, we're not going to play it today, but is just a really great example of something that you want to highlight as like the first thing you see when you get onto your Action Center website. Is just really saying, hey, we're all in this together. This is a group program. This is not something that we're just forcing on you. Has a lot of, content from like individual workers on the shop floor, as you can see here. Down here is the Take 5 video series that Rebecca was referring to earlier, as well as Team Member Spotlight, which is something I can't recommend enough. That's kind of like what I was talking about earlier with honoring someone as a top advocate at your conference. Is just a really easy, free way to get folks to feel really engaged and feel like they're a part of something bigger. And then, of course, the Ninja Level program. And so here are a few screenshots that are just exactly what we were talking about earlier, right? Becca was not lying that they have an actual singular policy driver's email for anyone to be able to contact. So if an advocate is on their Action Center website, checking out different campaigns or educational materials and has a question about it, it's right there on the website, how to contact them and get, provide feedback or ask any questions you may have. They also have made a pretty robust About Us and kind of who we are government affairs team page, which I think is really nice to, again, just show like, hey, we're people too. It's not just a, program being run by Big Brother Toyota. It's actual people that are making these decisions to support the issues that we care about and do things to make the company and the organization better. So I think this is really just like a good example of how you can actually do some of this stuff in actuality. And then lastly here, of course, here is the fun stuff. So we keep talking about making it fun and exciting. Here are the ninjas. I couldn't get the GIF to load in the slide deck here, so we won't be able to see their cool moves, but I will definitely tell you that they are some pretty cool moves. The Master Ninja one is there, just like floating there, and there's multiples of them. But you can see down here that the campaigns as well are just right there with the Ninja program, so you're always reminded of like the gamification and the fun aspect of it. And I actually really like their issue pages down here as well, which is kind of what we were talking about with making like appealing to different groups of advocates. Some folks might care about a certain issue, other folks will care about a different issue. So it's really great to be able to highlight everything that you're working on. So folks, maybe they're not interested in the one campaign that you have available, but they might be interested in some of the issues that you're working on. And so they can just continue to educate themselves on it. And then lastly here, wouldn't be complete without highlighting some stats about how Toyota's program has performed since introducing the gamification. So they've seen a 3.2% increase in open rates on their action alerts, up to 24.4%, which is pretty decently above industry average. So really trending in the right direction there. They also saw a 4.1% increase on click to open rate on action alerts, up to 16.9%, which is also above industry average and really trending in the right direction. And then my favorite one here is the 2.55% increase in reply rate on all emails. So of all their emails, 2.7% of people are replying and providing feedback, asking questions, saying how excited they are for a new video that came out. So I think that's really what's most telling about engaging with folks, keeping an open line of communication and making the content meaningful to them, is the increase in the reply rates that we see here.
I think we're like getting the hook. The Oscars music is going to come on.
Yeah. Hey,
But
folks,
this
sorry.
question came up. This,
Just went across.
can I just 1 second? I'm just going to put my email in the box because it did come up. How do you define success? And I just say it's all about engagement. Like, do people do what you ask them to do when you ask them to do it? And I can put my email in the box if people have other questions. I know we didn't get to all of them, but I just wanted to address that one because it was asked twice. So, okay, goodbye. Bye.
Thank you, everyone. Appreciate your attendance today.